Welcome back, Buddha family. So today I'm going to go over understanding fertilizer and what all those numbers mean. So a plant has macronutrients and micronutrients that it needs. The macronutrients, there's 6 major ones. There's carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, all readily available from the atmosphere. Then there's the latter 3, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are found in the soil, and that's what we have to add. So when you're looking at your fertilizers and you see these numbers, there's always 3 numbers, and it generally refers to nitrogen first, phosphorus second, potassium or potash third. What do they mean? Well, nitrogen is very important for vegetative and green growth. It gets your plants big and strong. They have that nice green color. Very important for the early and middle stages of your plant. Your phosphorus, the middle number, is very good for root development. So very important when a plant is young, and also in an annual or flowering, it helps really well with flowering blooms and flower production. And the last number, potassium, is basically think of it as your plant health. It helps the immune system, it aids in water and nutrients being transported throughout your plant tissue. And in vegetables, it can really help with fruiting fruits like cucumbers and things like that. Now, some nutrients aren't all available. If you're growing flowers, shrubs, things like that, the 3 macronutrients on any label should suffice for the most part. But when you get into vegetables, they're a little bit pickier. Some things need different things, like calcium, for example, is very important with tomatoes and peppers. But calcium, unfortunately, does not play very well with these 3 siblings. So calcium is usually found as a separate thing. Here you can see it's CalMag. So this is calcium and magnesium mixed together. What I'll be adding to tomatoes and cucumbers or anything else that might need it as far as a vegetable or fruit is concerned. So just keep in mind when you see things like in this Miracle-Gro, it says all-purpose plant fertilizer, it doesn't have everything. You can't put certain things with other things. They just don't react well, and that's why you have to have that separately. Another thing I want to touch on is you see on this Miracle-Gro, it says all-purpose. It's very misleading because what they've done is they did a broad range of growing and figured out the percentages of each of the 3 nutrients that provided the best results using it the whole way. So unfortunately, this does not apply to a lot of things. Maybe flowers you'd be okay, but I would never use an all-purpose on a vegetable or fruit, because they just need different nutrients at different times. You're wasting things, you could be polluting the soil and making it more acidic. So make sure you look at that. So when you look at an all-purpose plant food, and I flip on the back, if you go to the number, see it says 24, 8, 16. Well, I just told you, I don't want to be feeding 24 nitrogen later on in a flower's life. It's too much vegetative growth. I want flowers. So something you really have to keep an eye on. That's why I'd stay away from the ones that have the different numbers. Here, you can see this is an all-purpose too. Again, a little misleading, but at least it's the same numbers, so I can see that. But what Jax does really well is you can see that they have a bloom booster. So with annuals, once you get the plant to the size you want, you kind of want to switch to a lower nitrogen, the first one, and a higher phosphorus and potassium, the second one. That will stop the plant from trying to grow too big for its container, and it will focus more nutrients on flowers and bud production. And hence, you see when you get to the bloom booster, your nitrogen went down, your phosphorus went up, and your potassium stayed the same. So this is what you kind of want to feather out to as the season goes on for maximum potential. Now, a good fertilizer like Jax, if you look, will have a bunch of micronutrients on the back. You can see boron, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, zinc. All super important micronutrients. If you're a general grower, I wouldn't worry too much about these. The plant does need them, but in very small doses. And if you get a good fertilizer, it's probably going to have an appropriate proportion for what you're doing. And you have different kinds. You have like your Miracle-Gros and your Jax. When you open them up, it's just a blue powder. And these are what they call water soluble. So you would take something like this, mix it into a watering can, and then water your plants, which is my preferred method. If you have perennials or annuals or things like that in the ground, you have things like this, which are time-released fertilizer. Osmocote is a great brand, and you can see that there's no numbers. Well, they all have to have the numbers, so if you don't see them, just look. And if you flip over, I can find right here that my Osmocote slow release is a 14-14-14, which is a pretty good mixture for a slow time-release fertilizer. When you open these up, they're just granules, just like this. So you would mix them into the soil ahead of time. I like this for flowers and things like that, but the problem with vegetables is that and fruit, is that they need fertilizer constantly or throughout. And when you put something like this in, you don't know how much it's getting, how much it's using at one time, when it's all used up. So when I have a water-soluble fertilizer, I can start my dosages, and every time I know exactly how much I'm giving each plant based on how much I add to the bucket of water I'm mixing. You know, for example, if I've measured a watering can. So if I do a half a tablespoon in that watering can, it's 125 parts per million. If it's a tablespoon, it's 250 parts per million, which is a big difference. So these things come with instructions. They tell you exactly what to do and how to add it. So that's basically fertilizer in a nutshell. So now that we touched briefly on fertilizer, I hope you learned some new stuff. Take it forward with you. If you have any questions, let me know. But that was basically a brief synopsis on fertilizer and what the numbers mean. And just to recap, the three main numbers you care about: nitrogen, green growth, phosphorus, roots and flower and bud production, and potassium, your plant's immune system and fruiting for vegetables. So good luck, and we'll see you around.